right.
Welcome, ladymen, gentlemen, and Cybermen, to a new year of an Unearthly Podcast. Today we are kicking off Season 4 with Spare Parts, written by Mark Platt. I am Bill Sylvia, also known as the Man in Black, and with me are Mad Matt Winchell.
Hello.
Randy Ronson McCulloch.
Always a pleasure.
Aaron Romeo Moon Burke.
Hello.
And Tim the Enchanter Sheridan.
Hi.
Everybody have a good season break, or 2 weeks between episodes there, and New Year's and some such.
Yep.
Always
Technically,
hectic.
it was only really a week off from our usual, but yeah.
Yeah, except for Tim.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, technically Erin, because she
Oh
wasn't
yeah,
there
Aaron
for the
too.
Christmas.
Yeah, that's right. Aaron watched the episode, but she wasn't able to record.
Yeah.
She did give the final thoughts, which were recorded. We still haven't gotten Tim's, but apparently he hasn't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Shame. Come on, we've got money writing on your vote.
Yeah.
You do.
Did anyone
yeah.
vote against that one? I think everyone put their money on the same option. So
I think
think
so.
so.
Yeah.
all right.
We've pretty much given your revote based on your previous voting history.
Okay. Well, as soon as I get settled in my new apartment, I'll watch the episode.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
at least you have a justifiable excuse.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of moving.
Moving is good, unless
Start the new year.
Usually it's good.
Yep.
Usually.
So as we move into news for the new year, unfortunately things do tend to pile up. We kick off to 2015, unfortunately, with the passing of actor Bernard Kay as our first lost story of the year. And let me see here. He has appeared in quite a bit. I'm trying to find the specific Doctor Who stuff here. I thought I had...
His career kicked off with William Hartnell. He actually worked with William Hartnell on
he
the
worked
show
with
first.
William Hartnell and Carry On Sergeant, which I believe might have been Hartnell's either, if not his first role, his most famous before Doctor Who.
It's
There we
his
go.
most famous or his second most famous.
Yeah, there we go. He's worked as Tyler in the Dalek Invasion of Earth and Saladin in the Crusade. Those were first Doctor stories.
So was he?
He would be the one that would marry Susan, I think.
Yeah.
Was Tyler that one? I thought
that's
that was
David.
somebody
That's
else.
David.
Yeah, I thought it started with
Tyler
D.
was the smuggler that got them into Bedfordshire.
Oh, the
he
guy with the
appeared-
truck.
He appeared
No,
in
the
second
guy
Doctor
that.
story.
Just go on, Bill.
Okay. He appeared in the second Doctor story, The Faceless Ones, and the third Doctor story, Colony in Space. He also guest starred in Seventh Doctor audio Night Thoughts with, I'm assuming Big Finish. It doesn't say, but there's a
If
2006
it's a Seventh
audio.
Doctor audio, yeah. If it's a any Doctor audio after 2000, it's Big Finish. I think I remember Night Thoughts when it was coming out too. So
Gotcha. He did have quite a bit of varied career. I'd go over all of it, but we have quite a bit of news. We've had 14 days since our last podcast, so I'm not going to go through
13,
it all.
but yeah.
Got breezed
yeah,
through.
and we have to continue the news with another death, that of director Fiona Cumming, who has died at 77. She has had a long-time career with Doctor Who, starting as an assistant floor manager in The Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve with William Hartnell. She then went on to production assistant with The Highlanders, Jamie's first story under Patrick Troughton, and she would work again in The Seeds of Death and John Pertwee on the story The Mutants. She became a staff director in 1974, and in the 1980s she directed 4 stories featuring the Fifth Doctor. She directed Castrovalva, Snake Dance, Enlightenment, and Planet of Fire.
Oh.
She also made an uncredited cameo appearance as a tourist at Windsor Castle in Silver Nemesis. She also worked on several other BBC productions, including Blake 7, Sarcophagus and Rumors of Death, as well as Emmerdale, Walls of Jericho, God's Wonderful Railway, The Omega Factor, Play for Today, Angels, Jackanory Playhouse, Zed Cars, and the ill-fated El Dorado.
Wow.
After leaving the BBC, she remained active as a freelance director while pursuing a number of other projects, including some with John Nathan Turner, the former executive chief of 80s Who,
Yep.
in their Tainham Productions organization. She died on January 1st.
Oh,
77 is almost the good run, but
just a
By
little
the way,
shy.
I don't think we had mentioned Kay was 86, so he.
yeah, that was
Did have
definitely...
That
fair
was
run.
definitely a good run, yeah.
On to some less depressing news. Since shooting has started for Series 9, we're starting to get our bits of news trickling in. In this case, it is that Game of Thrones actor Paul Kaye, who plays Thoros of Myr. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. I've not actually
Yes,
watched the
that is
show
right.
yet.
Yep,
Has
that
been
is right.
okay. Has been cast as a guest. I don't believe they know yet what episode, or at least the news does not know. I'm sure BBC
Has filming
knows.
started, or are they still in pre-production?
This article is saying that the filming has started. I know they were supposed to start this month.
Okay, so they're into their first production block. Okay.
Yep.
Or their first filming block.
Mm-hmm.
So one would guess, not know for sure, but guess that this is probably one of the first 3 episodes.
Well,
that's
I
not
don't know
always
if
the
they're
case.
announcing it now. He may be coming in an upcoming filming block. He
True,
may be
that's
starting.
that's
he
true
may be
also.
starting the readings for his actual role,
Yeah.
unless the BBC knew about it and held on to it for a little bit until he started filming. I don't know.
True.
It's possible. Anyone else have anything to say about this?
That's really about it for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're moving on to ratings, which, of course, last Christmas was our last broadcast the night of, so we had no ratings. Now, almost 2 weeks later, we have plenty of news on it. First of all, is that Doctor Who was the 7th most watched item in the UK on Christmas Day, and 6th on BBC One. It had 6.3 million viewers that day on their overnights. That puts it behind Coronation Street on ITV1, which had 6.6, and above Downton Abbey on ITV1, which had 5.8 million. Usually Downton Abbey, if I remember, beats out Doctor Who, or it's usually a neck-and-neck close.
Usually, yes.
Other things in front of it included Strictly Come Dancing Christmas, EastEnders, Call the Midwife, Miranda, and Mrs. Brown Boy's Christmas Special. We also have in the official ratings for Last Christmas, those recording the program and those within 1 week, and that was 8.28 million, which put it as the 6th most watched program on British television for the day. This is down from the 11.14 million that was achieved with Time of the Doctor the previous year, but that was also a Doctor Departure episode.
Yep.
And it was also at a high time during a string of 50th anniversary specials.
Yep, and ratings has been across the board this year, with no program reaching 10 million viewers in the whole of Christmas week. As mentioned before, Mrs. Brown Boy's Christmas Special had 9.7 and was the top program, which is down from 11.52 million the previous year. The final figures don't include those watching on iPlayer, where Doctor Who had 1.06 million requests during Christmas week. Overall, it was the 9th most requested program, losing the title of most requested program over Christmas, a title it has held since the iPlayer system had been introduced.
Ouch.
Top Gear topped the list this year, airing the controversial episodes filmed in Patagonia. I think that was where they got kicked out of. So, probably a lot of people looking to see if the BBC is looking to sack Jeremy Clarkson.
It happens.
Was that the last of your bits? I know
That was the last of the trio there, yes.
Okay, so our continuing on with Last Christmas ratings-related news, the Audience Appreciation Index gave Last Christmas a score of 82. For those who've been keeping track, that puts it on par with Deep Breath, Robot of Sherwood, and Kill the Moon in Series 8.
which is odd, because I would consider it superior to all of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's along the bottom track of what Series 8 ratings have been, since the lower ones got 82, the higher got 85. So
yeah,
based
I
on
put
that,
this
that would be
485. So,
although still a fluctuation of 3 between the top and the bottom indicates that it's been a pretty fairly steady season in terms of general audience opinion anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. We also have the overnight ratings for Last Christmas in Australia, which averaged 563 viewers in the 5 major capital cities. It was the top rating drama of the day and the 13th highest rated program of the day overall. These, as are usual, do not include the regional or time-shifted viewers. It also apparently does not include the viewers in the rural areas.
As usual.
Right. And let's see. And actually, our next piece of news, this was a mistake of me reading too quickly. Apparently, this was Series 8 news rather than Last Christmas news. Luckily, that is what we were going into next, so it just fits in there.
Mm-hmm.
Just
And this is that we have been giving rating informations by TiVo, which is, I think, the first time we've covered anything from them. Granted, they're not the only DVR service anymore, but they've announced the ratings that Doctor Who on BBC America was watched by an additional 88% viewers since its broadcast. So I would take it that means that compared to the BBC America ratings, TiVo had 88.8% of that equivalent audience.
Okay, which kind of takes us into the BBC America ratings.
Yeah. And this was from based on the habits of 350,000 people between January and November of 2014. So.
I think that means 88% of those, or I don't actually. I'm going to retract that statement. Anyway, BBC America has also released their listings for ratings for Doctor Who for all of season 8, and they are pleased to announce it is the highest rated season ever on the channel. Finishing with the Christmas special, which delivered over 2.3 million total viewers and was the #1 non-sports telecast in all of cable during the time period among adults 25 to 54 in Live Plus 3.
I saw one version of that article that tried to claim that it was the top of all 50 years. And while you could take that as technically being true, that's only because a very small fraction of those 50 were actually aired live or same day on BBC America.
Yes, and it fails to take an effect that most of Doctor Who, when it aired, was aired on PBS, which is not cable. This is all of cable, so probably this is the highest total viewers in the entire 50 years of Doctor Who for cable.
In the United States.
In the United States.
But then again,
Yes.
It's also only been airing on cable for less than 10 years.
Yep, just about 10 years now. We're in 2015. That is, by the way, this is the 10th anniversary year for Doctor Who, which is actually coming up in a couple of months now.
Yep, and pretty much exactly a couple of months.
We didn't get it until I think 18 months later here.
Technically.
Or it might have been 6 months later. Either way, it was when Sci-Fi first aired it. It was a while, and most of us had already seen it anyway. Anyway, when you include Live Plus 3, the Last Christmas had a total of 2.616 million viewers, combining the 9 p.m. premiere with the 11:45 and 2:30 a.m. replays. For those of you that don't know, BBC America tends to basically go on Saturday night, Doctor Who, Graham Norton, Doctor Who, Graham Norton, Doctor Who. So it basically alternates its primetime viewing back and forth. This more than doubled the viewership of the 11th Doctor's first special, A Christmas Carol, back in 2010. That was the first simulcast Christmas special, by the way. BBC America was the #1 network on Twitter and Tumblr, and Doctor Who Last Christmas was the #1 show on both platforms in all of television in prime time, excluding sports.
That would actually
Christmas.
confuse me. How can you be a #1 network on Twitter if you don't air your shows on Twitter?
You're
Probably
getting mentioned by hashtags.
yes, probably tweets with hashtags. mentioning, usually the Christmas special will have a specific hashtag, and then they'll record any tweet that includes that hashtag. Doctor Who is pacing as one of Twitter's top 10 most tweeted original dramas in all of cable for 2014. And the average for this season was 2.035 million total viewers in Live Plus 3. So there wasn't that much more than for the Christmas than their normal viewing. But still, that's over 2 million people sitting down on cable TV to watch Doctor Who. It makes you wonder that if Doctor Who was a network television show in America on ABC, NBC, CBS, or Fox, how many more million viewers would it get?
I don't know about Fox. I've heard of them having some trouble getting shown lately.
Well, Fox carries its own set of issues, which we will not get into.
Sure.
We could take an hour to do that.
We won't.
Yeah, that's why we're not getting into that one. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much what I have for this.
Now we move into some bit more exciting news. Doctor Who at the awards, and we start off with at least 3 Doctor Who figures have recently been knighted. That would be John Hurt, who's given the rank of OBE.
That's Sir John Hurt now.
I'm constantly confused by this, because if you go off Wikipedia, his rank is not high enough to get him a Sir. But then I saw Doctor Who on Facebook share something saying Sir John Hurt. So I'm like, I don't freaking know. At this point, unless an official British source comes out and says what is a Sir and what is not, I'm not even going to try to guess.
Yeah, if you
I'm
try
gonna have to wait for the next time he's on Graham Norton.
Bound to fail.
Let's see. There was also, where was this? Oh, there we go. James Corden, who played Craig Owens in the 2 11th Doctor episodes, was also given the rank of given the OBE. That's Officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire. And then Sheridan Smith, who played Lucy Miller on an 8th Doctor companion in Big Finish, was also given the same honor. I didn't notice. This article mentions the name Mira Sayal, who I'm not familiar with. Let's see if the link shows anything. Here we go. And okay, so she appeared in The Hungry Earth and Cold Blood, the 11th Doctor's Silurian 2-parter. I'm assuming there's significantly more to her career than that.
Okay. Well, speaking of Sheridan Smith, Doctor Who has been nominated for Best Drama in the National Television Awards, and Sheridan Smith has been nominated for Best Drama Performance. Sheridan Smith is a former Big Finish actress, so has done voices in many of the audio dramas. No other actors related to Doctor Who has made the shortlist for the NTAs this year. And it looks like...
I believe Big Finish did, but nothing Doctor Who related. Or at least some similar award.
Like I said, Doctor Who is in the Best Drama. It is up against Sherlock, which has been beating it regularly at most awards, as well as
Sherlock didn't even have
Abbey.
A season this year.
I know!
Bullshit.
Yeah, it is. If you're in the awards, you should have at least one production show.
I think they might have had a Christmas special, which I haven't seen yet. If so,
that would be enough to include them. But still, that's bull. I'm
sorry. Big Finish was in the BBC Audio Awards, but again, nothing Doctor Who related. That's why I didn't.
Doctor Who did win the award for Best Drama last year, beating out Sherlock, a title it had held from 2005 to 2010, and then Sherlock started beating the pants off of it in 11, 12, and 13.
That's because last year there was Day of the Doctor.
Probably. That was what would have taken it over the top.
Mm-hmm. Question is, was this year good enough too?
Yep, and we'll have to keep track to find out.
And as our latest few bits have all referenced Big Finish, we do have one Big Finish release this month, or this week. are the first Doctor Who Big Finish release of 2015, of course, and that is Monthly Short Trips Flywheel Revolution, which is a short trip story featuring Peter Purves, who played Stephen Taylor, in a First Doctor adventure.
All right. We have, I think it's one final piece of news.
Yep.
And it's mostly an interview piece here. And that was an interview done with Russell T. Davies on the 10th anniversary of New Who, as it's been dubbed by most of us. Quotes from it includes the fact that Russell T. Davies states that Stephen Moffat invites him to come every year and write an episode of Doctor Who. And his quote is saying, "A program can't have its 50th and then its 10th. I think that it's just confusing. Let it carry on." So he's not really big on the whole concept of celebrating the 10th anniversary.
Oh, anniversaries are wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
What I find to be the standout piece of this episode is that it was the BBC contacting him regarding doing something, which indicates that there are some sort of plans in the works to celebrate the anniversary, whether it's just, things such as the Ninth Doctor comic and other small things like that, or something bigger, of course, is something we're not going to find out until they do whatever it is they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be down for an extra special if they had one, or even a webisode. But the fact that they're in production now for season 9 means that we're probably not going to have that. Unless they already have it in the bag, and are not telling us.
Which they have been known to do once in a while.
It would be interesting, very interesting, if what we saw at the end of the Christmas is that the Doctor and Clara will return in, what did they say it was? The Magician's Apprentice?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
If that was a 10th anniversary special coming out in March.
That would be interesting. What I would actually think would be a fitting scale anniversary special, honestly, would be an 11th Doctor and a 12th Doctor and Clara episode where they happen to run across Rose Tyler and/or Jack Harkness.
It'd be nice, but
they probably wouldn't be able to get Chris back for it, but it would be awesome if they could.
Well, yeah, Chris has pretty much said he's not going to unless the script is really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And he makes more than a token appearance, so I don't think that would happen. I think just celebrating it with a bonus episode would be nice.
Yeah.
Not making it, the huge production. Just give us a bonus special.
Right.
And I'd be happy as a clam.
As long as it didn't suck.
It's only a 10th anniversary of New Who.
Right.
It doesn't need to be the 3 Doctors, the 2 Doctors. No.
Even if it was not equivalent in scale, but equivalent in size and budget to that which we shall not name.
I would like a little more budget than that, please. Anyway, BBC source says plans for the reboot anniversary were still to be decided, and that the corporation's primary focus was always the 50th anniversary back in 2013. So, it looks like it may not happen. Speaking at the world premiere of the last series, Moffat appeared to agree, suggesting it was time for the show to settle down and move forward after the 50th.
Well, you should have done that this season. Jesus.
So, that's really all we could really glean from this.
Yeah, I personally just found it interesting that the BBC is going out contacting people, which implies that they want to do something, but it doesn't give any sense of scale as to what it is they want to do.
It doesn't surprise me because Doctor Who specials make them money. And not just in cash, but in, media coverage and publicity. So, and Doctor Who is still their prime market, their prime valued market item. Their showboat, their headliner, their flagship. and they're going to try to pimp it as much as they can while it is this. And it's especially important to the BBC now that they're on their own, and now that they're on their own and they don't have the central government to fall back on. Although, if they did do a special, it'd be nice to bring back the Nest team. Just as a shout out to Rose, the first episode.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be kind of cool, but
Wait and
probably
see.
not going to see it. And I believe that's all the news that's fit to print.
It is.
For Doctor Who at the moment, and don't expect this much news for the upcoming season, because there's only going to be the odd bit here and there as we hear about stuff about filming.
Yeah, the month prior to the season is probably going to be news heavy. It definitely was last year. But other than that, yeah, we're going to be a little sparse for the next few months in news.
Every now and then we'll hear about somebody that's going to be writing or making a guest appearance. We know
granted,
that...
I don't particularly mind that, because that means when we have something we want to talk about, we can spend 10, 15 minutes on it without hurting anything.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, we still have a few minutes here in our allotted schedule. Is there anything anyone wants to talk about related to Doctor Who or science fiction in general?
I've got nothing major right now.
Anybody here watched Agent Carter, maybe?
I actually have not yet.
Neither have I, unfortunately.
I assumed that it was not on Netflix yet. I mean, not Netflix, Hulu yet, because usually it's
it was
24 hours from
night.
the end of the broadcast. So yeah. So I mean, it might be on Hulu by now.
We taped it. It might be something Aaron and I watch tomorrow, but that won't be good enough for this podcast. Anybody see any good movies recently?
Saw The Hobbit now, but I think I might have mentioned that last time, maybe?
Possibly.
I watched a movie, I watched a non-sci-fi movie that I can't believe I've waited this long to watch, which was Django Unchained.
Wow, yeah,
That's
you did
an awesome
way
movie.
well on that.
Yeah, Aaron.
That's
actually,
also
I think-
because I didn't find out who directed it until after all the buzz had died down, and then I was like, oh damn, I would have gone to see it in theaters if I knew that.
Aaron sat me down about a year ago and made me watch that.
Made Randy and Matt watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that would have had to have been during an OddCon.
No, that was...
Yep,
yeah,
that was during
Oddcon.
OddCon.
Yeah. That was actually almost 2 years ago then.
Yeah, 2 years ago, because I had everybody sleeping over in the little efficiency there.
Yeah, so... Yeah.
Actually, something
Memories.
I
Memories.
Something I did remember now. I think it was... Actually, I think it might have been from a Facebook post that you shared, Aaron. About fan-made web shows and shorts and stuff based on comic book characters.
Oh yeah, funny about that, I still haven't even watched that video myself. I just kind of shared it.
Oh.
I hadn't seen it yet. But what about it?
So the first thing they showed on there was essentially a Batman animated series based around I forget his name, the Bat Dog.
Ace?
Ace, yes.
Ace the Bat Dog.
And
The Bat Hound.
The Bat Hound, thank you.
Bat Hound, yes. And actually, because it's also animated, they decided to take a very animated series seriousness to it. And it actually starts off kind of feeling like it's a death in the family. Batman rides up in the Batmobile, gets out, and then all of a sudden an explosion. He goes through rubble and he finds Ace.
And does
It's
he
just
give
like,
a
whoa.
no?
Yeah. And it was just kind of like, whoa, that's kind of dark. That might actually be a good series if they actually go ahead with that. They have one for the Punisher called Doing Laundry. He just wants to do laundry, and there's these gangsters causing all kinds of trouble right outside. He finally has enough and goes out there and beats them with a liquor bottle.
Okay. Wow, that's a little... Wow.
Like full-on kung fu style, beat them with a bottle. And other details, but I won't go into that because family show.
One thing I'd like to put some time on. I'm fairly certain, and obviously no plot details since we haven't gotten into the summary yet. But I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that this is both Tim's first experience with the 10th planet Cybermen and first experience with Big Finish. Is that correct on both of those counts?
That is correct. And actually, no. It is my first Big Finish audio, but I have. You say 10th Planet Cybermen. I have seen the serial Attack of the Cybermen.
No, those are 80s Cybermen.
Those are 80s, yeah.
We are talking about the Cybermen that talk like this.
With cloth faces.
Yeah. So this was your first experience with those, I'm thinking, right?
Yes.
So what are your impressions of both these Cybermen and and your first audio without unless it's something that you wanted to save for our later discussion?
I wanted to save most of it for the later discussion.
I would say save the Cybermen discussion for the later discussion, but save your opinion on what you think of the Big Finish audio, at least the production values and the amount of work that goes into this. I think that could be shared now, because that's generalization on Big Finish itself.
Yeah.
Because, mind you, they crank out at least one of these a month.
At least.
Sometimes up to like a dozen, it seems like, for if you include like all the sub-series and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with that knowledge, I would say that I was quite impressed with it. I thought that they were very clever about what they could do with the big audio, with like just doing an audio drama. In that some of the scenes that in this story I felt wouldn't have been as impressive if I could see it on the screen than what I'm forced to imagine in my head.
Yeah, that's part of what they do.
You know, that is a part of a discussion on the difference between radio and television. And with before there was television, when it hit in the 50s, most broadcasts were radio, and a lot of radio dramas were made in that era. And yeah, you could listen to it and you had to use your imagination for what's going on. But TV gives you that visual component, so you really don't have to use your imaginations as much. You just look at the screen and watch the story.
Which is also why I'm more of a novel person rather than any sort of visual format. That's one of the several reasons why that is my preferred medium.
Novels also allow you to get into the mindset of your character more.
That's another one.
And it also lets you create the character, not just the character's look, but the character's sound and their mannerisms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, even before radio, novels were all you had, and then radio came and took the sound and made it static, and then television came and took the video. Soon, what are we going to have, smell-o-vision, where you can smell a battlefield? Great.
They tried that with Spy Kids, and I don't think it was very popular.
No.
4D.
Well,
See, 4D would be fine if we could see it backward or forward in time. I could deal with that.
Cyberpunk talks about what would be the next revolution now that we've got sound and sight, and that is what they call SimSense or brain dance or something like that, where you basically have you have something that basically feeds the stuff directly into your head, so you experience it as a full-on
virtual reality.
Yeah, audio, visual, all five senses. William Shatner took that concept and made a whole series of books called the Tech series on it. Also very cyberpunky, and probably some of his best written work.
Well, technically we're already looking into the past because light takes time to bounce off an object and reach your eyeballs, so that all we ever see is the past.
Yeah, but the amount of time that it's taking for light on a local level like this is nanoseconds.
That, and it's a static experience. Anything we see is pretty much going to be the same amount of time in the past, so it might as well be the present, in that you're not getting an experience of seeing things forward and backward in time. You're seeing one set wall of time, essentially.
Wow, this got into a really awkward segue.
Yeah.
Well, if you could see like forward and backwards in time, would that be paralyzing? Like you wouldn't know what to do?
It depends on how. Because if you look at the Doctor Who mythos, basically the Doctor can see forwards and backwards in time, but I think he kind of only sees it as a general...
and diagonally.
Well, I think he only sees it as a generalization, I mean, if you're looking down the highway and there's a fork in the road, both forks lead to the same location, but via different routes. I think that's kind of how the Doctor sees time. He knows, if he does this, he'll go up the left fork. If he goes this, he'll go up the right fork, etc. But he doesn't see the minutia. That's always been kind of how I figure that's how he sees things, but I could be completely wrong on that.
Depends
Trying
on the
to
person.
steer the conversation back to Doctor Who.
I've often wondered, is like the Doctor Who, not the Doctor Who, the Doctor, like Dr. Manhattan, in that when Dr. Manhattan said, everything is preordained, even my responses.
To a certain
definitely not,
extent, but not as hard on
Yeah,
that.
Not to that
no.
level, because the thing about Manhattan was that he was supposed to be essentially omniscient. His abilities had given him infinite knowledge and everything, so he could see all the responses of everything that was ever going to possibly happen, and therefore to him it had already happened.
Whereas the Doctor
there's
can
also the
at
fact
best
that-
predict generalizations.
There's also the fact that time tends to work differently, and you can't have perfect predestination in a time travel show, because at that point everything would be boring to every Time Lord. The Doctor would have nothing to explore, and there would be no retreading old ground, no reason to go back in time, because there'd be just no reason to. There'd be nothing new to experience. So time just works a little differently in something like Doctor Who, in that it's a lot more changeable than the Einsteinian version that Watchmen is based off of.
Okay.
Timing!
I believe, Randy, I think you have some experience with the writer of this episode, right? Mark Platt?
A little bit. He has written a few other things, not all of which I agree with.
Actually, did he write Ghostlight, or was it just based off of his work?
I think he at least wrote the original script for it. Whether it was rewritten to some extent by the writing crew, I don't know.
That's plausible.
Because I know Ghostlight was going to be Lung Barrow at some point in its development.
He was he wrote a lot of novels following the fall of Classic Who. He did write Ghostlight based on proposals, and he also wrote Lung Barrow, which is again what I did not like.
Yeah.
Because it did way too much. It modified way too much stuff from what we knew canon. He also wrote the novelization, by the way, for one of Bill and my more or less favorite Doctor Who episodes, Battlefield. but he is very big on writing Big Finish audio. He's done well over a dozen of them.
Apparently, he's very big on writing origins. He wrote a story that's essentially a prequel to Ace's origin. He wrote the Doctor's origin. He wrote the Cybermen's origin. I'm sure he's cursing Terry Nation for getting to the Daleks' origin first.
He really can't, because, you know, Terry Nation made the Daleks, so therefore he has all the rights to write their origins. But, yeah, really, you know, it's just a matter of somebody had to get there. The clues for how the Cybermen came about were already there, hidden in various episodes. Sure. So it was really just a matter for him to flesh it out. And you know, it's probably the answer asking the same question, you know, regarding Ace, regarding, you know, everything else that he's done origins for, was just along the lines of eventually you're right about something enough, you start wondering about those early bits. Before we saw them, what were they like? But let's see. He has wrote for Big Finish, Lou Guru, Spare Parts, Old Mortality, A Storm of Angels, which has nothing to do with the Weeping Angels, Frostfire, Valhalla, Mother Russia, The Skull of Sobek, Time Brief, The Doll of Death, The Three Companions. A lot of these are for the Companion Chronicles. Old Mortality and A Storm of Angels were for the Doctor Who Unbound series, which were, you know, non-canonical Doctors. He also did Paper Cuts and Earthly Child, which was a return to Susan. The Lost Stories, Point of Entry, The Cradle and the Snake, Relative Dimensions, The Companion Chronicles, Quinnis, Lost Stories, Thin Ice, Lost Stories, Children of Seth, The Silver Turk, and The Butcher of Brisbane. So that's a lot of Doctor Who audio. He also wrote the novelization for Ghostlight, Battlefield, Cat's Cradle, Time's Crucible, which I believe was part of a Cat's Cradle series of books, Downtime, and Lung Barrow. And he apparently did one comic for Doctor Who magazine back in the 90s. So he's been relatively prolific after the fact for getting in on Doctor Who so late.
I think that brings us to about time to go into the summary, I think.
Yep. Do you have it, or should I?
You don't want me to summarize this.
Okay. I can do this, because I've been thinking about it more or less all day. I don't have anything written down, so I'm just going to head and belt through it, and I'm going to miss some parts of it that's just for, that was mostly superfluous.
Maybe you'll get some of the stuff that had me confused, or else I'll have to ask about it later.
Okay. So, the Doctor and Nyssa arrive on a planet that seems remarkably like Earth, except it's all underground and is apparently a gray planet in the wastes of space near a nasty part of the universe. The Doctor, Nyssa's all for poking around, and the Doctor seems very reluctant, only kind of grudgingly agreeing to go ahead and let everyone poke around, and they pull a Scooby-Doo and separate. Nyssa winds up helping a lady help her father from nearly getting crushed by a falling building, or a collapsing portion of a building. And as they're getting ready, the curfew tolls, and they tell Nyssa that she can't stay out on their own and take her home, where they meet a lady by the name of Sister Man. What was Sister Man? Constance, who seems very interested in who Nyssa is, where she comes from. She also takes interest in how the old man is doing with his chest unit. Nyssa was originally confused that he had no pulse, but kind of revealed there that he must have had his heart replaced by some kind of prosthesis. And how the medication is working on the sister. There's also a kind of a sullen jackass of a brother in there. And basically they start getting ready for what sounds like some version of Christmas. Meanwhile, the Doctor is out poking around and runs into a man who takes a very unhealthy interest in the Doctor's organs. But before he can do anything about it, they're basically pulled over by a patrol, which any classic Who watcher of the William Hartnell era would recognize sounds like the original Cybermen from the 10th Planet. The Doctor himself notes that he could tell the similarities, but that they did not have the metal face mask and still, on the outside, looked human. The Doctor pulls a quick, confused bit and manages to escape from the Cybermen before they can get him, but he's reported. Likewise, the Sister Man reports on the strange person at this house and recommends a pickup for one of the other members. Afterwards, after which a patrol comes to examine Nyssa, who escapes out the back, and meets back up with the Doctor, but not before the sister gifts her, not the Sister Man. What was the sister's name?
Yvonne.
Ivana, yeah. Ivana gifts Nyssa with her former pet, called Maddie. If you're paying attention, you could guess what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
She meets up with the Doctor, and they go into the TARDIS, where they have an argument revealing that this is Mondas before the revolution that created the Cybermen. Meanwhile, in the central committee area for the Mondas, we start hearing the voice of the Central Committee, which sounds like the bastard offspring of Soundwave from the Transformers, Rober Bill of the Robert Burbles from 80s Thundercats, and a Cylon. Do not ask me what drunken orgy would have produced that. I don't want to know, but that's what it sounds like.
Well, there are supposed to be something like 20 minds mixed into it, so maybe, you're not that far off.
Anyway, it's demanding of another Dr. Man Allen that she increase production, of which Dr. Man Allen is very reluctant to, because she's already having problems. Her department's being run ragged by the quotas that they already have. And it is revealed that the reason for this is they're supposed to be making workers that are supposed to be able to dig their way to the surface and exist out there. Why they're initially planning to do so is not revealed at this time. But as the plot goes on, first of all, the Cybermat gets loose in the TARDIS and nearly destroys the central console, digging for energy. The Doctor, of course, has a hissy fit that Nyssa brought a Cybermat into the TARDIS. And after a bit of arguing, stalks off to do his own thing, leaving Nyssa to fix the TARDIS console. On his way out, he runs into the surly brother, who I believe his name was John or Joe or something like that.
Frank, I think.
Frank, okay. And he lets him into the TARDIS to talk to Nyssa while he goes off. Well, one of the things the Doctor had done earlier was try to set up a bit of a small revolution by setting off a church bell near where their work crews had been digging up bones. Yes, they're digging up corpses. So I guess the series finale wasn't first in that aspect. Anyway, he tries again, this time by unloading a truck carrying said bones into the middle of the street and absconding with the truck. Hoping at this point, to incite people into a riot and revolution. Unfortunately, this is ill-timed. The Doctor sees his friend again, Mr. Dodd, the organ dealer, and at this point, he can't pass up on the Doctor's fresh organs and locks him in the freezer. However, they had been spied on by a Cybermat, which sends a cyber team to kidnap the Doctor and bring him to Central Command. And this is where the fun begins. Nyssa finishes fixing the console, but looking outside of the TARDIS, discovers that the TARDIS is completely covered by Cybermats, who all want into the power area. And the only way she can figure out to stop them is to let them. She reconfigures the TARDIS to basically hook the power directly up to the outer shell and fries all of the Cybermats dead. Eventually, they get back to the house that they were in, where they discover that the sister has already been taken for duty, i.e. cyber processing. And that everything's in a bad state. They turn back to the TARDIS to ask the Doctor for help, but the Doctor's not there. Nissa figures he'll be in central command, and he is. Meanwhile, there is a power outage that started, I believe, once the diggers had actually dug out to the surface. The problem is that this started causing the atmosphere from the outside, which is pretty much absolute zero, to come seeping into this city, the last surviving city on Mondas, and making it too cold for everyone to survive. The Central Committee's decision is to cyber process everybody. No exceptions. It's the only way, and that way they can conserve the power from the city. Which the Doctor, doing a little bit of poking, realizes that they should have enough power to power 1,000 cities based on that one generator, and that the Central Committee has been absconding it for its own purposes. Without power, it's nearly shutting down, and everything's taking a turn for the worst. The Doctor makes a deal with the Central Committee to restore power, that it would restore power to the city first. But he's knocked unconscious by restoring the power, and they basically do restore power to the city, but then continue on their own plans. Dr. Van Allen does a scan of the Doctor and discovers that he has, in addition to his binary vascular system, a small secondary brain at the base of the brainstem, which, if they adapted it for cyber use, would create a whole better functionality. The Doctor, with horror, realizes that means the Cybermen and every horror that they've done had all been based on him. She begins to take this and go for processing as Central Committee starts bringing everybody into there for processing, causing a great deal of panic and confusion. Meanwhile, one batch of the cyber processed that during the power failure didn't get their full programming. In there was Ivana, who escaped and got back to her family. And while she didn't remember much, she seemed to remember their Christmas tree, or their equivalent thereof.
The exposition tree.
Yes, the exposition tree. I will talk about that in a bit. Meanwhile, anybody want to help me with the conclusion here? Because I'm starting to get fuzzy.
Oh, you're getting fuzzy? Okay.
Yeah.
So, after all that happened, the Doctor realizes that they have to stop the Cybermen, and he has just as much say in how the Cybermen turn out, since they decided to steal some of his genetics in order to make the new big enhancement that will then be able to not only take the cyber conversion faster and be more efficient, but also allow them to survive on the surface indefinitely instead of the short periods of time that they've been able to do so thus far, and take far more damage. To which they steal some of the other. I can't think of the woman doctor name.
Van Allen.
They take
Dr.
Van Allen's liquor and start pouring it into some of the solutions that they've been using to make these Cybermen in order to make them weaker.
Yeah, sorry, my second listening to this was interrupted today, so I never got back to it. And that was the one I was taking mental notes for. And yeah, it basically boils down to the cyber commander, Zhang, I believe.
Yep.
Yes.
Having to make the decision to fire the thrusters to keep the to keep Mondas out of the this bad area of space full of radiation, or keep the committee
they were
alive.
headed toward a nebula. Yeah.
Yeah. Or keep the committee alive, and they managed to convince Jang to fire the thrusters, which kills the committee. And at the end of it, we basically see the Cybermen and the humans working together. Zhang is apparently destroyed, and the Doctor is hoping that he has basically been able to turn the Cyberman into a better people, more human than their original versions. But after he and Nyssa take their leave, it's discovered Zhang is alive, and that he and Van Allen, or Dr. Van Allen, was going to start again.
Well, he and the other woman that was converted, the woman that was picking people,
Sister Man, yeah,
so,
Sister Man.
he and Sister Man took Van Allen as the next startup for the next group of Cybermen conversions.
Yep.
Now, one question I want to pose regarding this: do you guys think, or how would you feel if, at some point in this, I'm assuming 3 of the 4 people on here besides me have seen Genesis of the Daleks, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How would you guys have felt if at some point he had given an equivalent speech? Can I destroy the Cybermen? Do I have, that type of quandary, or do you think it would not have had any place here and just
it wouldn't have had the same impact because we'd already seen it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
True.
It really would have come
figured that was
across
part of
as
it.
Genesis of the Daleks all over again.
Right.
And
And
we would
here,
have had more backups to starting this up too, in order to make that quandary. This is
And
very
here-
obviously the Doctor going forward.
The reason I ask is because I did find it interesting that the Doctor didn't even consider it, which I think is partially because he knew that being caught up in events that it would be doomed to failure if he tried.
well, he was very leery to do anything in the first place, but he couldn't help himself.
Mhm.
He's talking to Nyssa. We should just get out of here. We should leave. And Nissa's having none of it. But of course, the Doctor, if he's in for a penny, he's in for a pound, and starts actually working on trying to wake the people up so they know the Cybermen's there. But he doesn't want to try to take an active role himself until he's forced into events.
The Doctor was also aware that he was trying to change his own history, which is always doomed to failure, whereas Nyssa didn't quite have that same experience.
It's not doomed to failure. It's always a bad idea because it tends to lead to paradox.
Well, I'm going with, by doomed to failure, I mean, for example, Day of the Daleks, where the humans, because they were caught up in the events they were trying to change, found themselves doomed to cause them instead because they were part of the events rather than coming from the outside, whereas the Doctor coming from the outside is more likely to change them.
Yeah, but that was humans using a cut-rate chronicon tunnel to try to change history. As we know, the TARDIS, being a Mark 40 time capsule of Time Lord design, is a lot more complicated tool.
But the TARDIS
and
will also
trying
not
to change
let the
your own
Doctor
history.
change his own.
We have seen what happens when you try to change history involving a TARDIS. That's what happened in Father's Day.
That happened in Father's Day. That also happened in Waters and Mars.
Yes. So we know it's possible. It's just a bad idea.
That's changing history versus changing your own timeline, which is
No, I was
the whole
actually
thing
talking
with-
about. I was talking in Father's Day was Rose Tyler changing her history.
right. Okay,
And
yeah. Rose
that-
saving her own father when she wouldn't have come to that point had her father not died is a good example of it.
Yes, and that led to paradox, which led to
And that was
big
actually I'm
things.
pretty sure at the end of Earthshock, he has this conversation with either Nyssa or Tegan. I think it was Tegan. About why he cannot just go in and save Adric, and this is just a roundabout way of coming to the same conclusion.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we've established in Doctor Who that the Doctor could go back, but he shouldn't because it's not a good idea and could possibly tear the universe apart.
Yeah, it would unravel the
Now-
time stream that caused the events in the first place.
In this part of the Doctor's history, he still has the safety net called the Time Lords that would probably come in, fix things, and punish him for doing it, but, would prevent the universe from falling apart by his doing so.
Punish him by making him president. That seems to be the worst punishment you could give him, but from the Time Lords.
Yep.
Albeit, based on when this has to take place, which is shortly after Earthshock.
I would say shortly after Time Flight.
Yes.
No
Was
Tegan.
Time Flight before or after Earthshock?
It was like two
After.
episodes later, I think.
No, Time Flight
Okay,
was
so yes, this
episode
would be after,
immediately
this would
after.
be between Time
they were
Flight and Arc
immediately
of
after,
Infinity. This would be between Time Flight and Arc of Infinity because Tegan's not there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just the Doctor and Nyssa, and there is no marked time on how long the Doctor and Nyssa traveled by themselves, both of which being
And
aliens.
Big Finish
and-
has really taken advantage of that fact.
yes, they actually added a companion in there, if I recall.
Did they? I don't
Yes,
know.
the Egyptian girl, I think.
Ah.
Or did that happen during Perry? I can't remember.
All I know is all I know is the Fifth Doctor did quite a few audios with Sarah Sutton before Janet Fielding as Tegan, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Before she agreed to come back.
But yeah, so they've taken a big advantage of Time Flight, but this one is apparently like right after, because Adric's death is still very raw,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and it's very noticeable by the way. This is actually the after episode of Earthshock we should have gotten,
Probably should have.
because
yes.
you do see the fact that she's very upset and very bitter about what's happened. Oh, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's it becomes a ongoing thing. Yeah, it's Perry that it's during the Perry era that they add a companion.
okay.
My apologies. There's an Egyptian priestess by the name of Aramum.
Actually, that makes sense considering the Sixth Doctor has had so many companions off screen.
He's kind of crazy like that.
Mary Shelley was a Sixth Doctor companion, wasn't she?
Possibly, I don't know. Are you talking in audio adventures or?
Yeah. No, yeah, on screen the Sixth Doctor only had two companions, one of which had no true origin story. But in audio and other things, he's had everything from shape-shifting penguins to
Mind
Zoe.
you, the shape-shifting penguins, I believe, started in the comics,
Yeah.
and they've only
Technically.
done a few specials with him. I don't think they've ever done a main line with him.
No,
wanna see him on video,
I just meant off-screen Sixth Doctor companions in general, not just Big Finish. But he's had everywhere from Eighth Doctor companions to Second Doctor companions to Frobisher, and quite a few in between.
I really wish that they would bring Frobisher into the new series, but I'm not sure how they would go about that.
Peter
Nah,
Capaldi played a character named Frobisher in Torchwood.
it would be a little hard. It would be a little hard to swallow, I think, for the new series, because it's a little above and beyond even for the new series.
We
To be
swallowed.
honest, I'm surprised he wasn't a companion during the first season of the second during the first season of the Seventh Doctor, because yeah, that was really Doctor Who at its campiest.
You almost got me to say we swallowed Jack Harkness, and that would have been bad.
You've said it anyway.
Phrasing. Okay, no, I do not see Mary Shelley in the list of Sixth Doctor companions unless it was in the novels.
Oh.
Anyway. Oh, wait, yes I do. I'm sorry. It was the Eighth Doctor that had Mary Shelley as companion.
Oh, okay. He also has had a lot of companions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think it's time we started to get to our base, our four categories here. So overall, what did you like about this particular audio drama? In general, what did you appreciate? Who am I starting with today? I am starting with Matt.
Isn't Tim normally on the left?
Yes,
Starting
but today
with
Matt
me.
is.
Starting
New
with me
season.
today. Alrighty.
New season, new shuffle.
Shuffle. One of the things that I had a problem with in 10th Planet, but did not
problem.
in this
This
audio.
is what you liked. This is liked. Problem with his second category.
Let me finish. Let me
Okay.
say what I'm saying and finish. As I was saying, one of my problems in the 10th Planet, but not in this, is that they did fix up that Cyberman voice. In the 10th Planet, I could tell it's just a guy off screen. There didn't seem much to it. This, you could tell they were doing the similar voice, but they were tweaking it and making it a little less human.
Pretty sure this one was also a guy off screen.
Bill, I just explained, and don't make me hurt you. I could tell by just the sound of the voice that they were doing more than what they were doing with the original version. I think this is a better idea of what their intent was. Again, it sounded a little less human. They added some more effect to it.
Albeit this was done nearly 40 years later.
True, but the effect was there, and it fit the Cybermen a lot more than what the original sounded like, even if it was them mimicking the same voice.
Okay.
So I thought that was an overall improvement for the Cybermen themselves.
Bill.
You want me to go second with all the choices I would have for this?
Yep, you are now second on my list.
All right, I'll try to stick to one or two so I don't take everybody else's after me's picks then. I would say what I liked about this generally was the way that the story sort of toys with the Doctor. The way that he makes an assumption and then is proven that he's actually in over his head. By which I mean, for example, when he's like, not to pick one scene, but as an example, when he's like, oh, they're not as far along as I thought. That's because you're not looking at the fully processed ones. You're looking at the half-processed cops. The fully processed ones are on the surface. Things like that, where the Doctor, he's trying to be as optimistic as he can because he's deluding himself into thinking this is a different type of story than it is.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. All right, Tim, you're up next.
Okay, so what I liked about the episode, I sort of hit upon just in general the idea of being forced to use my imagination. In this episode in particular, this is going to sound strange, but I really liked the sad parts. It made it like a more real or touching or human to me.
Made it more effective.
Effective, yeah. Like the pathos of some of the scenes. And I do like the 10th Planet voices. Those are very effective.
All right. Aaron?
I liked, I don't think anyone's mentioned this, but I liked the atmosphere of it. The overall atmosphere. You're kind of, like Tim said, you are forced to use your imagination, but there's just this overall kind of pervasive feeling of dread.
Mm-hmm.
This is the type of radio drama that would be really good if you just kind of sat in a dark room and just kind of listened to it without much, just kind of deprived your senses except for sound, and just let your imagination do the work. And that I thought it was very good.
Yes, Big Finish has pretty much perfected the art of the radio drama, something that had actually been lost since, like I had mentioned, the 1940s. There had been very few radio dramas domestically since then. The British tend to do them a little more. I mean, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy started as a radio drama.
Mm-hmm.
But they're still not as pervasive as they were in the 30s and 40s, where everything was a radio drama.
I'm curious. Would you include in what you said about the atmosphere? Would you include the announcer voice that they used for the commercials about the recruiting commercials and such? Would you include that as part of that opinion? Like the one that the first episode starts off with.
Yeah, the part I skipped in the dialogue. The PR voice, you could say.
Yeah.
I don't know. Oh, like, who are you guys talking to? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's just
Talking to you.
to me, right? Oh, so
Yes.
what
Yes.
was the question again?
Would you include that announcer commercial voice as part of the atmosphere that you were complimenting?
Yeah, because it's kind of a false kind of lead. You're kind of misled into thinking that you're about ready to listen to an old timey radio drama type thing, and then all of a sudden you cut to this guy stepping out into the atmosphere and he screams in utter pain, and you're like, what the hell am I listening to? And it's like, oh, it's this is obviously going to be kind of something kind of creepy, something a little bit darker.
I think that brings us to what Randy likes.
Well, I like the fact, and this is something that Big
Wait.
Finish is very good at doing
No.
in almost all of its dramas, is bringing the feel of that particular era of Doctor Who to their work. This feels like a Fifth Doctor episode. The music feels like a Fifth Doctor episode. The pacing feels like a Fifth Doctor episode. The only thing it's missing was the 80s credit opening, closing, and Big Finish got those later in their process.
Yeah, they got
Yeah,
it.
I almost kind of wish they'd go back and redo these old audios, just their opening closers with the appropriate era openers.
Because
and
the
closers.
opener and closer on this one was obviously Third Doctor.
Third, Fourth Doctor, and that is what they started with.
Yeah.
And like I said, it was somewhere I think around 50, or when they brought in the Eighth Doctor, that they managed to get access to the rights to do opener and closers from the original series. So everybody got their appropriate opening, and Paul McGann got a new custom one. But I always like the fact that they managed to capture that particular feel and adjust the narration so it feels like you're in a radio. I'm doing a 2-for-1
Right.
because I'm last.
Well, they don't
adjust the
really narrate in most of them. They sort of manage to
not over narrate, but the dialogue is changed so that they're describing what they're seeing.
Right. Yeah, they manage
More
to
so
adjust
than you
the
would in a
dialogue
regular-
so that. Okay. Yeah. Like you could see it as happening on TV. Like they wouldn't need to really change anything to put it on TV, but you don't need the visuals either. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, it still feels like a Fifth Doctor episode, and I've always liked the fact that they make it feel appropriate to the
the
era that they're doing.
The sound effects too. They usually manage to keep to the same level as their appropriate Doctor.
Okay, so on the other end of this, what didn't you like about this? 4 episodes of a Big Finish audio. What didn't you like, Matt?
Oh my.
If you don't have anything you don't like, take a pass.
I can't say there's anything overall that I didn't like about this, other than the fact that, as we previously mentioned, they didn't have the right opening. So that's about all I can really give you. It would be
All right.
nice if they would update that right now. And
Bill.
they easily could.
Well, mine is, bear in mind that I do generally have a short attention span when it comes to listening to things, which is part of why I haven't listened to quite as, I've listened to as few audios as I have. But that said, during some of the more active moments, I did find myself having difficulty figuring out what was going on, particularly at the climax, where it seems the Doctor goes from working with them to all of a sudden the council. They were called the council, weren't they?
Committee, Central Committee.
There we go, Central Committee. To all of a sudden, he goes from talking to the Central Committee to they're dead, and I sort of had trouble keeping track of the transition from one to the other. That's pretty much my biggest issue. Is that my main issue, and it's a fairly minor one, in that there are one or two moments where I had difficulty keeping track of things like that.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I tried to listen to it twice, but like I said, I got my second listen got interrupted about somewhere in episode 3, so didn't get it finished. All right, so Tim, what didn't you like, if anything?
The thing that I came closest to not liking, but not disliking, was I had a hard time pinpointing the motivations of Dr. Manallen. Like, it seemed like, at first, like she was this, like, mega maniacal supervillain bent on creating a master race. And other
Davros.
times, like Davros. Like, she seemed like too much like Davros, but then, like, they seemed to be, like, holding her back, or, like, pulling her back and saying, no, your characterization is not that, it's someone with just a well-intentioned person who is blind to what's really going on.
She's a red herring. They're dangling Dr. Manhallen in front of you to distract you until Zhang shows up.
In a way, because she kind of goes from, she does kind of waffle between being this massive cynic about what's going on to boasting about her creations a la Davros, and doing it in the same scene. It was a little bit distracting for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'll agree with Tim on this. It was a little, what the hell?
She seemed a little bipolar.
Yes. And it could be, of course, the fact that you're dealing with somebody who is physically exhausted.
Also a possibility, yeah.
But, yeah, it kind of got hard to pinpoint where she actually stood on everything. I'll agree with that. All right, Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
What didn't you like about this episode overall?
I actually kind of didn't like how similar it was to Genesis of the Daleks. It just kind of overall felt kind of been there, done that, in my opinion. There wasn't a complete copy, like you said. He doesn't make the big speech about whether or not he should kill them. Well, he does kind of argue with Nyssa about why he's not going to do it, but it's not really a huge decision for him to make. He's already decided, like Matt said.
Yeah, it's not a morality drive for him.
Yeah. But there's enough in the story to kind of make it feel kind of unoriginal, and it also reminded me of newer episodes of New Who, such as The Girl in the Fireplace, Deep Breath, a bunch of the other ones. I mean, well, those, and of course, the story was actually partially adapted into the New Who stories.
Yeah,
for
we're planning on it was. Yeah, we'll talk about that after this part of it, because we'll actually then weigh in on how we feel about this versus the adapted version before our final thoughts, which is why I started this a bit early.
But yeah, I know. Like, when was this one made?
This
99, I'm thinking, or close to it.
It was around the turn of the millennium.
Mm-hmm.
It was somewhere around there, give or take a year.
Okay, so it was well before well, actually Moffat. I was going to say RTD, but Moffat did both of those stories, Girl in the Fireplace and Deep Breath.
This is 2002.
2002.
Okay, 2002. So
years.
So they hadn't even begun development on New Who when this came out.
Yeah, but it still kind of leans back towards Genesis, and it seems to kind of rely a little too heavily on the same kind of story structure of this planet falling apart, people turning to advanced technology to try to save themselves, and wind up becoming monsters in the end.
To be fair, the widest consensus that exists on the Cybermen is that they fall back on the Daleks and do the same thing, but not as good. So,
well, the Cybermen were meant to be replacements for the Daleks when Terry Nation pulled the Daleks from Doctor Who. That was the whole reason they were created. Was the fact that Terry Nation at that point had taken the Daleks and had gone to the United States to ship them around.
Forgetting, of course, that the United
Is that
States
actually
didn't
why
know
they were
anything about
created?
them.
Because in their debut season, there were 2 stories of each, which makes me wonder, had they already, had Nation already done that, or what?
He hadn't, but that is why there are no Dalek stories between Troughton's First and Day of the Daleks.
Ironically, the Daleks come back before the Cybermen after the invasion.
Yeah, well, that's why the second Doctor's rife with them, is that basically Terry Nation told them that's what they can happen, that's what was going to happen. They asked him could they have 2 more serials do 2 more serials. He said yes, I'm not going to write them, but I'll let you do 2 more. But at the same time that they were working on that, I think it was Kit Pedler, was it? And somebody else basically said we should have another one that we have direct control of, and they wrote 10th Planet.
It's worth noting also that apparently Nation could not stand Whittaker's take on the Daleks.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Even though that's what kept the Daleks going. Funny.
Which is why after Evil, we don't really see another Dalek Emperor until 1989.
Yep. Anyway, and that turned out to be Davros anyway. Anyway.
So that was the thing that I noticed like right away, and that was the thing that kind of stuck with me throughout listening to it. So I guess that's the most irksome thing that I noticed.
Yeah. Okay, so what bothered me over the course of this serial is how many Mondasian things turned out to be just like Earth down to the letter.
Okay.
Like their tree, even though they give a reason for it to be different, for that they have stuff for different reason and why they have it. It's still
every
a goddamn
element
Christmas.
of the tree symbolized an element of plot exposition about Mondas.
Yes, but it's still a goddamn Christmas tree at the end of it.
Yes.
Which they haul out once a year and probably exchange presents. It basically was a frickin' Christmas tree. And then there was a few other lines here and there about stuff that
the movie theater.
The movie theater. Somebody mentioned something about the football, and I'm like, it's just hitting me that it's way too Earth. If you listen to the story, Mondas is Earth's twin planet. It is not its clone planet, but it was knocked out of orbit when the moon entered our orbit, or was created. And that was hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years ago. And yet, by some bizarre course of complete parallel, they wind up with the exact same things, called the exact same things. It kept breaking my suspension of disbelief. It really did. It just, and I mean, and just when I thought they were over it, and I mean, at first they were toying with it because they didn't want to reveal to us that it was Mondas, but they kept it up afterwards. And it just kept eating at me that it was just too similar. Okay.
Police officers, etc.
And Yvonne wanting her family to see her in uniform when she got back.
That I can understand. That's kind of a global, or not a global, a universal truth. Is, hey, I'm going to go. I'm basically being forced to enlist. Let me get the picture my parents can be proud of me in my uniform waving them off. And, you know, you're thinking crisp military uniform kind of thing. So that one didn't bother me.
Yeah, that's something you'd kind of expect among every alien species on Doctor Who, so it would really... It would fit regardless of whether or not this was. It
was more the mundane stuff that was, you know, exact the same thing. Telephone being a telephone.
I kind of disagree with it. I think you can still have an alien people that don't believe in uniforms. I guess that would be certainly alien, but
then they would be naked, Aaron.
They would have clothes, though. It would be different clothes.
Anyway. But then again, we do know that Cybermen believe in a uniform, so kind of hard to take that away.
What about Daleks, though?
Daleks also believe in a uniform.
It's just...
metal plate.
Yeah, it's just metal plates and bumps. And what color the metal plates are denotes your ranking. Or, if you buy Moffat, what your function is. What part of the giant robot your part creates. They will forever be Sentai Daleks. Yes, they will.
Voltron reference.
Okay, so what specific scene did you like? Which part were you absolutely riveted to your headphones? And once again, I am starting with you, Maddie.
Favorite scene. So many good ones to actually pick from. I have to say, the one that really got unnerving is when the committee started sounding more unison. When they finally made a really big decision towards the later act. Usually there's a lot of reverb in its voice, but all of a sudden you just got this really clear voice, and it kind of made me sit up and go, oh, that's not good.
I can't remember which exact...
It was shortly before they got the doctor in there to try and get the power working, I think. It was either short before or shortly after when he got zapped.
I think it was shortly after. Because that was, back when they had no power, it was talking weird, but it was talking like it was low on power. That was when it really started talking like a Robert Burble from Thundercats. And then the second the power came back, I noticed, wow, it's talking crisp now.
And it also was making decisions far faster.
Yep. So, Bill, what scene did you like best?
I actually have two scenes that I kind of settled on, which are in some ways counterparts to one another, because they sort of highlight the same thing in very different ways. One is a scene where the half-programmed Yvonne makes it back to her family, and they're really seeing this is what cyber processing is and what it does. The other scene is when Zhang, as the cyber commander of the story, arrives, and we're pretty much we're done with the wandering to and fro. Where are we in the origin? Here's where shit is about to get real. The Cybermen are here.
Okay. I can see that. This is not Zhang's only appearance. He would make an appearance in the later Sixth Doctor drama.
Ah. So this even has a direct sequel, technically speaking.
Yes, it does. I didn't know if Bill knew that. I didn't know
I
it
did
until
not.
I didn't know it until I read up on the episode. So that was like, wow.
I'm assuming
That's kinda cool.
I'm assuming that he is not the same Cyber Commander from Tomb and Attack, though, right?
I don't think you mean controller, because that was the head of the Cybermen, was the Cyber Controller.
There.
We're not
Sure.
sure, I would assume.
I'm not sure either. I wasn't the same voice actor.
Then again,
The
yeah,
Cyber
it's not like he wasn't named until 2002, so it's not like they would have.
No, the Cyber Controller had a name prior, but
He had
oh,
a
you mean
name?
Zhang? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he was always just referred to as the Cyber Controller, so we had no idea who he was. But the Cyber Controller in both appearances was given the same VA,
Mhm.
and it wasn't the VA that did Zhang. Although it's obvious that the vocal styling will change from various upgrades because, of course, you had the Cyber Controller from Tomb talking like somebody with a cancer box up to his throat,
Mm-hmm.
and then you had him talking in Attack of the Cybermen with the classic '80s cyber voice.
I guess in Attack of the Cybermen, he did not say excellent. He left that to his cyber leaders.
Yes, because that was David Banks's thing. To add that extra layer of cyber cheese.
Mm.
Excellent. Yeah.
Excellent.
This is excellent.
Yeah, it doesn't quite work with that voice. It really doesn't.
No.
All right, Tim, what was your favorite scene?
Okay, I think someone already mentioned my favorite scene, but that's okay.
I might have probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of knew it the second you mentioned it, and I suspect that your favorite scene was the one where Yvonne came back to the family.
Yeah.
The whole scene with her trying to look at the Christmas tree, and
Yeah.
I will call it a Christmas tree.
That's fair.
That's a good Christmas tree scene. You know that.
Yeah,
that scene really touched me.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, Fifth Doctor era Who had several kind of scenes like that in a few of the episodes, especially by the later stuff,
Yeah.
where it was just that kind of that tragic, kind of tragic horror kind of feel.
Right.
Actually, Classic Who was pretty good at that in general.
By the way, since we're mentioning voice actors, Zhang is Nicholas Briggs. It's just a different modulator.
God damn you, Nick Briggs! I have to give that man more credit every time, because I would not have pegged that as being Briggs.
And he was also the regular Cyberman in this episode.
Figures, yeah.
Was he the Central Committee as well?
I'm not seeing who the Cyber Committee was played by.
Frank Welker! Frank Welker!
Frank, he's so crazy.
Either that, or the person who did the voice for the Cylons from the original Battlestar Galactica, because they mostly sounded like the Cylons.
Yeah, there's
What
no
about
voice
the
actor
other
listed on TARDIS.
Battlestar. It was probably Briggs.
It was, yeah, or a group of people. Actually, no, because that was mainly reverb. It wasn't actually different people talking.
It was
probably Briggs.
Mm-hmm. But no, take a clip of from the Cyber Controller at the end of episode 1, beginning of episode 2, and then search around on YouTube for classic Cylon, and it's almost the same damn voice.
That's it.
Okay.
I also liked the scene where Nissa and the other person meet the Cyberman, and they think the doctor has been processed.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Where the doctor, quote unquote, comes out of processing.
And I'm thinking, okay, you could only get away with a scene like this in an audio drama. It would not work on TV.
Mm-mm.
Oh, I don't know.
That was my impression.
I don't know. During the Matt Smith era, if you had a Cyberman come out of cyber processing that Matt Smith had bucked into with a bow tie, I'm pretty sure you would have gotten a look of horror on Amy and or Clara's face for that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm kind of picturing now if David Tennant had ran off screen and be like, I'll be right back, and then a Cyberman came through, the look of horror that would be on Rose Tyler's face.
Possibly. All right. So, Aaron, what was your favorite scene?
My favorite scene was actually pretty far towards the beginning. And it's not just because I started kind of phasing in and out of the story as it went on. Towards the end, I think I almost blanked out almost entirely on, well, about the last half of episode 4. But this scene happened earlier on. It was the scene where the doctor's hiding out with was it James Dodd was his name?
Dodd.
Yeah.
Thomas Dodd, I think.
Thomas Dodd, yeah.
Yeah, Thomas Dodd. He, the spare parts salesman, and they're hiding out from the police, and they hear the woman kind of yelling at the door, trying to be let in, and it kind of triggered.
That was not.
That wasn't the doctor and Dodd. That was Nissa.
That was Nissa, yeah.
Really?
That was Nissa.
I don't know what you're thinking.
And Nissa and the.
I just read
Frank.
about it. Huh.
And they turn the radio on so that they can't hear her or the television, and eventually the noise fades out, and Nissa's freaking out, going, "What happened?" Yeah.
Okay, well, I just read up on it at the Wikipedia. Apparently,
Wikipedia can be wrong.
Yeah.
Well, it can be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I just read it, so.
Yeah,
so they probably screwed
it's
up
wrong.
the article.
And the four of us who have listened to it are saying we also remember that scene, and it was with Nissa and them. If it was just one of us or two of us, it would be debate. But with all of us, I'm pretty sure the wiki's wrong. But yeah, that scene itself is a little freaky because it's letting you, and I don't know if that scene is ever resolved. Is it just
they never really explain, what happened to her other than the fact that the cops are out there, and I don't think the cops killed her.
They must take, if you're caught after hours, you're just immediately taken to processing. But
Apparently.
by the term of things, it didn't make a lot of sense.
I mean, it's good in setting the mood at that point in the story, but looking back at it afterwards, it's kind of weird.
Yeah. Wow, we are not going to have as much time as I thought. Okay, so what scene did you not like? And let's make this succinct, Matt.
Scene that I did not like. We mentioned what's her face, the female doctor that helped make the Cybermen. The one part that I kind of felt that was shoehorned and forced was when she was going back on trying to mess with the Cybermen while the doctor was pouring in her wine and stuff into the vats. It just really felt forced that she would go with them and then suddenly just heel turn in 5 seconds.
Yeah, that's what I meant about her characterization being a little wonky.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Bill, what scene didn't you like?
I'm going to go with the climax, and that's essentially just because I just could not keep track of what was going on with it, and I enjoyed pretty much every other scene, but that last 5 minutes or so, I just could not. So I'm going to go with that one.
Okay, Tim.
I'm going to go with the opening scene purely because I had not yet had the time to adapt to the idea of the audio drama as a thing.
Okay.
So I was kind of like, wait, where are we? What's happening? What's going on? Sort of thing.
All right.
But
By the way, Big Finish tends to do those kind of stings before the beginning of the episode in general. It's one of their things. All right, Aaron.
Good to know.
What scene didn't you like? Aaron?
Aaron.
Mike, on?
What? Yeah?
What scene didn't you like?
I don't. I'm not sure. To be honest, I don't know if there's really a scene that I absolutely hated.
Okay, so we'll give you a pass on it.
Yeah.
As for me, it was the plot exposition Christmas tree scene. Because again, it just seemed so contrived. It was just making me grit my teeth. Okay, unfortunately, we are now at the 10-minute point before the end mark, so we're going to have to go straight to final thoughts. If maybe we could take a minute or two to talk about how we feel about it transferred when they stole bits of this for Rise of the Cybermen: Age of Steel. To be honest, I don't think that much of it was adapted.
I honestly think that was more based off of. I mean, what's his name? Lumic seems more like a Davros than of anybody in this story.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and the plot as well. The idea of taking the current fears and adapting them into the origin of the Cybermen is kind of a thing, but that's really kind of stretching it.
Yeah. It really kind of felt like, the most that they took was the conversion horror scenes, and really, I didn't feel like that was overly the same. For everybody that's talking about how Rise of the Cybermen: Age of the Steel was just spare parts with a different wrapper, I actually beg to differ.
Yeah.
They feel very fundamentally different on anything above the core level.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of Doctor Who episodes that I would think that Rise of the Cybermen: Age of Steel borrowed as much, if not more, of from than spare parts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, anybody have a differing opinion? Anybody? Bueller? Anybody? Okay, we're going to final thoughts. Matt.
Final thoughts. Overall, I thought that this was really good. I thought the sound effects were, again, very effective. I thought the voice acting was very tight. My only problem with it is just a nitpick, pretty much.
Okay.
Or two.
Bill?
Definitely a really good story. I mean, as I mentioned, the biggest complaints that I had was that there were a couple of times where I lost track, and this is a medium where I'm likely to lose track anyway. Other than that, there were so many things I could have mentioned, in terms of things that I liked about this story, with very few negatives that I had to bring up.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Tim?
I really liked this episode. It took me a while to get used to it, to get into it, but once I did, I found it very rewarding.
By the way, if you ever have to do long commutes, Tim, Big Finish Audios is a great thing for long commutes.
We'll keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Aaron, your final thoughts.
I actually really like this one. I've always been kind of a fan of radio dramas, so yeah, it's something great to listen to, when.
Okay. Yeah, I really like this one. I'm probably, of the group, the one here that's the most familiar with the Big Finish Audios, since I've listened to, I think, the first 100 at one point. As I mentioned to Tim, they're great commute bits. I used to have a 45-minute drive to and from college, and I would basically go through one of these a day.
When we were doing Destiny of the Doctor, I was listening to them in my morning commute before I managed to shorten that commute.
Yeah. But it's this one is probably I would say upper medium, if not absolute, in the upper tier for Big Finish works. Some of them can get a little more muddled than this, where you really don't know what's going on, but this one tends to be more or less snappy. There are a couple of parts where it does seem to be you tend to lose for the audio, but all in all, the voice acting's good. Both Davidson and Sutton both give very convincing post-adric trauma performances, which probably did a little bit for Matthew Waterhouse's fallen ego.
Mm-hmm.
The writing is fairly good, and yes, while it is revisiting an enemy origin story, I do feel it is different enough from Genesis, because it's basically taking the story that we've already heard of how the Cybermen were created and fleshing it out. It does borrow from Genesis, but that's probably a pretty good pool to go to. It doesn't go so far that you absolutely have to grind your teeth with, oh my god, it's Genesis all over again.
Now, if the Time Lords had sent the Doctor to investigate the origin of the Cybermen, that would be where I would draw the line.
Yeah. And it comes back with a pretty good feeling, and the feeling of ominous that, in the end, nothing got changed. Okay, so ratings. Our rating system has not changed, I think, since we started it. Matt, how would you rate this?
Well, we added halves, but that's about the most we changed it.
And we added the 0 score because we had to, but
I would say 4.5.
4.5 out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Very close, but not quite.
All right, Bill.
I'm going to say this is on par with my other favorite Big Finish story that we've reviewed, and on par with my other top Cyberman story we've reviewed, both of which were 4.5s, so I'm going to give this a 4.5.
All right.
Well, not counting Darkwater Death in Heaven, because that's more than just a Cyberman story.
Tim.
I would have to give this episode 5 stars. I really liked it. It was really beautifully written and moving.
Okay. Aaron.
I think I'll give this 4 stars. Pretty good, but just not that original.
All right. And I'm going to go ahead and give this a 4.5, making our average score and our median score, our mode score, 4.5.
The mean, the median, and the mode are all equal. Score a day for averages.
So we start out our new season with a 4.5 average. Bill, myself, and Matt are all at 4.0. Aaron is now our low scorer at 4, and Tim is our high B at 5. How does it feel to be the low scorer, Aaron?
I think it means I'm a critical thinker. I think about these things.
Says the person who admitted that they dozed off.
All right, so
Yeah.
that should pretty much do it for this episode. We will be adding this to the master sheet and everything later. Next week, which will be the day after my birthday, by the way, we'll be coming back with the first of the second Doctor Cybermen episodes, the Moonbase.
Yep. And if you enjoyed your time with us, you can follow our streams at twitch.tv/MadMat2185. Subscribe to our uploads at MadMat Inc. 1's YouTube channel or on Mixcloud, or follow us on Twitter and Facebook. And of course, don't forget to join us next week as we visit the Moonbase with Patrick Troughton and writer Kit Pelder.
See you all next week.